From the Corner Office is brought to you by Synovus Bank, championing business growth through trusted, relationship-driven banking throughout the Gulf Coast region. Doug Staley has spent his entire nonprofit career, some 30 years, in the field of social work and child protection. It's a mark of consistency that sometimes goes unheralded in a low attention span media landscape. Not at the Business Observer, where we write regularly about the leaders, movers, and shakers that make the region go, like Doug. To read those stories and more, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com for more. Hello, and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Doug Staley, executive director of the Child Protection Center in Sarasota. Doug, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. We're looking forward to the opportunity in our discussion today.
Excellent. Well, Doug, we're going to talk about your career and leadership and the Child Protection Center and what that's all about. Before we get into that, a couple of questions for our audience to get to know you a little bit better. We're gonna do 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
All right. Here goes. It's a deserted island question, but it's a little bit different. Okay, we're not going to ask you about the food or drink you would bring. We're going to ask you, if you were left on a deserted island, would you rather be with your worst enemy or alone?
Easy. I would take my worst enemy easily. I don't know that I have a worst enemy, but I think it's an opportunity, and I think the chances for survival would be greater with 2 people. So an opportunity to understand maybe the differences that would cause us to be on opposite sides of that equation. So I would take the enemy position every day.
All right, so we're all in this together kind of theme, and let's get through it. Good leadership.
Absolutely.
If you could only have 2 apps on your phone, you have to delete everything but 2 apps, what would you keep? What are the 2 apps you would keep?
Oh man, that one's tough. Okay, so the one app is, I can't seem to get by without my satellite radio app that's on my phone, because I have to have background noise, listen to news. I'm a huge baseball fan, so I've always got satellite radio on my phone and traveling headphones, so it's constant. The other would probably be, as a relatively new grandfather, the being connected with FaceTime to my grandchildren makes my heart melt every time I see the FaceTime coming through on the phone. So I would definitely want those connections.
Excellent. I love it. And yes, I have Sirius XM as a big one on my phone for similar reasons. I'm a addictive New York Mets fan. It's a tough spot in life, but that's where I listen to all my games on the Sirius XM app.
Yeah, I will listen to baseball even if it's not a team I follow. I grew up in Ohio, so I was a big Cincinnati Reds in the 70s, a big Red machine. So right. I still listen to the Reds. And then I follow the Rays because they're local. But then my kids are in Atlanta, 2 of the 3. And sometimes I end up going to more Atlanta games than I do Rays games. So I kind of follow multiple teams and just enjoy the sport.
Excellent. That's good. That is good intel, Doug, because we're going to pivot. I'm going to surprise you with the 3rd rapid fire question.
Okay.
Who's your favorite? I mean, because it could be Johnny Bench. It could be Joe Morgan. There's a lot. I mean, Dave Concepcion. I'm a big baseball guy. Who is your all-time favorite big red machine Cincinnati Red?
Oh, man, that is tough. But I was a huge Johnny Bench, growing up. But you take any of them, Dave Concepcion, Johnny Bench, all those guys were they were the heroes of the day. And going to the Reds in the 70s, I mean, they're one of the all-time greats when you look at that team and what they accomplished. So,
yes, great leaders.
So, Mark, can I ask you this question? Where do you stand on Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame if you got that baseball?
I've thought about this a lot. I feel like it's kind of a cop-out answer, but here's my answer to that. I feel like he needs to be in with like the biggest asterisk. Like right. He's so great and so amazing, and like the hit record alone, it needs to be recognized and appreciated. But he's such a not good person from the gambling side, you
Right.
you can't ignore it, right? I don't know what that would be. He's got to be in, but it's got to be a big asterisk.
Okay, I think I agree with you. I think you can't deny what he accomplished on the field, regardless of everything else that has come out. So I think he deserves there. I'm fine with the big asterisk. I would like to have seen it in his lifetime, but at this point, I would still like to see it happen.
Yes, yeah, no, it would certainly be worthwhile. I mean, there's so many great things that that his accomplishments. It's not. I mean, think about it. It's 4,100 hits. I mean,
Yeah.
3,000 is the barometer of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and the Charlie hustle. I mean, I think that's what inspired kids, that hustle, just to keep going. And I mean, he just was a slap base hitter, man. He just was hustle and the competition, which is what a great thing to emulate. Not so much on the personal side, we can all agree, but I think on the field there's a lot of things there.
He made some bad
to
choices.
He did, but.
We could talk baseball. There's some really good podcasts. We could talk baseball podcasts as well. Right, Doug, tell us about, I want to get into CPC, but also your life a little bit as well. Tell us, how did you get into nonprofit work?
So accidentally, I think it was. I mean, if you asked me back in the day, I was going to be a professional baseball player, playing, first team All-State in high school, played some in college, got frustrated and ended up going in the military before finishing up my education. So, and the reason I bring that up, it was the military that introduced me to social work. And so I found myself as newly married with my high school sweetheart. We're overseas in Germany, and we end up providing respite care with some of our fellow soldiers. We didn't have children yet, and they needed breaks and things. So we would give them breaks and have their kids for the weekend so that they could just kind of recoup as a married couple without their kids, and, kind of taking care of their needs and helping them out in different areas. So I was introduced to social work just through being a soldier. My wife was already completed her education. She was taught for the Department of Defense. And so, maybe we're in a little better position than some of the other soldiers over in Germany at that time. And I really liked that aspect of taking care of others and found it very natural. And then post-military, I went back to school and finished my degree, undergrad and grad degrees in social work. So I give credit to the military for introducing me to a lot of the social work concepts, if you will, and enough so that I wanted to further my education to make that a career.
And at some point, Child Protection Center, I feel like, I don't know if it was last year you hit 30-year anniversary, or recently you hit your 30 years.
Recently, yeah.
Okay.
So we debated a little bit. I guess technically August 1st is my 30th anniversary date, but I walked through CPC. It was like January 3rd or 4th, completing an internship. So I entered as my last internship working for CPC, 30 hours a week, that January 3rd or 4th of 1995, and I never left. And so I was initially hired part-time, and then, upon graduation, part-time, and then I was hired full-time, I guess, August 1st of 1995. So that was my introduction. And I found CPC accidentally. I was driving from Port Charlotte at that time to Tampa to school, and there was an internship opportunity at the Glasser show. At that time was just called the Glasser Human Service Center. And there was an opportunity with the Child Protection Center. And I met with Dr. Hal Headley at the time, the CEO. And I'm like, this is really a cool place, and was introduced to it as an intern in a parenting program that we no longer have. But that was my introduction to CPC, and, never left. And that was a great introduction to the organization and interns, which we still take very seriously and have interns today. In fact, many of my staff started as interns. I have several program directors and people in leadership roles that started here as interns. So that's kind of the going adage. You can start as an intern and end up being the CEO.
Yeah, well, it's an excellent way to, the interns can get a sort of understanding of the organization's mission and sort of its why, right? Its North Star, and then you can get an understanding of them as well and how they work.
And why it's so important for us as a nonprofit, because whether you work for CPC or not, we want people to understand the dynamics of abuse and to take that with them. So even if they don't stay with CPC, they're going to have that as a background, and they're going to take it wherever they go. So I think that benefits us. It benefits our communities when we do that. And so if we're really serious about making a difference, then you really want to take those interns on to have that training process, especially for the work that we do.
For those who don't know, Doug, what's sort of the elevator pitch for what CPC does and what its mission is?
Great question. So the Child Protection Center, all we do is the prevention, intervention, and treatment of child abuse. So all of our programs work in those venues. So prevention, intervention, and treatment. So, obviously as an organization, as a board, we want to prevent abuse from ever happening. So we have the longest tenure prevention program in the state. So this is our program that's out in the schools and the community. They have curriculum targeting internet safety, bullying, all kinds of prevention education, because that helps break that cycle, gives them tools to handle those circumstances and to know what to do if abuse is occurring. So that's very important for us to continue that involvement and grow that program. Intervention, we have 2 intervention programs. Our child protection team, that's actually our longest tenured program. It exists in statute. We assist law enforcement and the Department of Children and Families in child abuse cases. It's a medical model. So the head of that team is a medical doctor, and they provide law enforcement and DCF. We do child abuse medical exams. We do forensic interviews. We do psychological assessments. We're assessing abuse, and we make recommendations for the Department of Children and Families and law enforcement. That serves both the criminal side and also dependency. So that's a very important program working at the front end. Our other intervention program is when the courts say that you can only see your children if it's supervised for whatever reasons. It could be criminal charges, drug addiction, all kinds of things that get them to that point. We provide that supervision. So that's another intervention program that we do that's court ordered. And every visit, every word is supervised by a volunteer. Every word is heard. And law enforcement is present during all those interactions. So the goal is to create a safe environment for that parent to reconnect with that child as they're working through to ultimately try to get unsupervised visits back at that point. And then the other program that we have is treatment. So we have a treatment program, and we provide trauma treatment to verified victims of abuse. So we're serving these kids that are verified victims of physical abuse, sexual abuse, and our whole goal is to take them from a child victim of abuse to survivor to one that thrives. And then we recently added, we want them to become warriors. So that's what we want to do, because help them through that process. And we know it's going to be a lifelong struggle. So we give them the tools and the skills to navigate being a victim of abuse. And I think that's such important. A new area that we've done, Mark, that we over the years would see adults come to us. We inevitably go speak, and you'd have an adult say, I never told anybody this, but I was a victim of abuse. And this is somebody that would be older. And we just hear this time and time again. So now we have a program called Hannah's Hope that serves adults who were victims of child abuse and never received treatment. So we help them kind of get unstuck from those decisions, those things as being a victim of abuse and never sharing it. So we work with adults now as well. And that's a rapidly growing program service area for us as well. But again, the continuum of our service is prevention, intervention, and treatment.
So you talk about the services side, there's also the operations side and sort of the budget side and all those other parts that come with running a nonprofit. Doug, how have you handled sort of the ebbs and flows of nonprofit? Is there one or two leadership challenges that stand out that you were able to execute on in your tenure there?
Yeah, I've kind of shared this, previously. So we've had some lessons, and we've had to take our lumps. When you think in general, and the reason I say that is most nonprofits, or a lot of nonprofits, people rise to the top because they're within the program and they're good at the service side. But nonprofit is a business. So you really have to understand the management, the operational side as well. And so for us, a pivotal point, Mark, was when we moved to this address on Orange Avenue. So you go through, that was 2009, December, we closed on this property. 2010, we moved in on Orange Avenue, and we were previously over on 17th Street at the Glasser Schoenbaum Human Service Center. We were really unprepared for a much larger operation. We did not have reserves to speak of. And things very quickly became difficult. I was not the CEO at that time. A lot of those decisions I wasn't a part of. So I was more on the service side of it. We learned very quickly, we had a point, December 8th, 2010, there was about 7 staff members that was let go on that day as a transition. So we had to learn some lessons and say, we either had to do something different or we're going to cease to exist. And I think at that point was the catalyst to our change. We can pinpoint to that moment in time. And we got on board and did things much, much differently. We went through some leadership changes, but we also want some great work with Gulf Coast Community Foundation, board development, doing the work and change the course of our trajectory. So, what is that definition of insanity? If you keep doing the same things and expecting a different outcome.
Results. Yeah.
So we started talking and we started listening, and we were getting advice from not just Gulf Coast, but very smart business leaders, and listening. And then we were putting into practice those lessons, and we're able to change our trajectory as an organization. And that was just pivotal for us.
Yeah, and so you get to this point where you're leading and you have to hire other people, bring in people, grow your organization. What do you look for in leaders, Doug? What are leadership characteristics that stand out to you?
It's a great question. What are we looking for? We want that honesty, the integrity. Looking at how they carry themselves. For us, very much, I'm a servant leader. So I want to see them to be able to not just bark orders or different things, that they're going to see them in action. They're going to be able to lead, model, demonstrate, because part of our model for success here is bringing up those below us up to a higher level as well. So, we're looking for people that are passionate about the mission first and foremost, but we're also looking for those that are going to exhibit those qualities that can be further developed. And sometimes, they're in-house and they don't even know it. You see somebody that has the qualities, but they're afraid to speak, and you work on their speaking, their training, and you start giving them the confidence that they can do more. And you're starting to investing in that side of the equation. So I think people to lead is one thing, but you want to be able to keep your people engaged and that they're going to want to follow as well. And so you have to stay connected at all levels. And, I think people need to be able to exhibit some of those traits to demonstrate that.
Definitely. As a leader, Doug, what have you learned? What is leadership advice that you've gotten and received that you've learned that you've used today in your career? What leadership advice stands out to you?
I think there's a couple. I think just constantly, I grew up with my parents. My dad every day would say, "Son, be a leader, not a follower. Be a leader, not a follower." Every day, I heard that every day, and just learning what does that mean. Being willing to make decisions, to follow through, and I take that. That was my advice to my own kids: be a leader. Be willing to make the tough decisions. Be able to make a decision. Don't just follow blindly what other people are just assuming or saying. And that's proven well in this work. Sometimes you have different contracts and different things, and somebody will say something and everybody just blindly just says, okay, I got to follow that. You got to ask questions. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And you can do it in a very respectful, tactful way. And I think that's the other thing I learned. My dad would always say, you put your pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. And so you treat everybody fairly, and you don't want to be so full of yourself that you're going to emulate that, you're above. You're not. I grew up with parents that worked hard. They own their own business, outdoor landscaping. You work hard. Your word means something. And so when you can have that follow through, be that servant leader, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, looks like, and I think you're in your office now as we're talking about this. You have a picture of a leader behind you. You have Yoda. I see a picture of Yoda. He could be a mentor, a leadership mentor.
Yeah, it's funny. My daughter drew that. My oldest daughter is an art therapist, and it's patience, learn you must, is what it says. And so it's definitely, you have to have the patience, and as a leader, I think that's good advice, that you have patience as you're trying to get them to understand what you may already know, but they have to get there themselves. And I think that's something I try to instill on leaders. And if I'm not here, make a decision. I will support you in your decision. And if I disagree, we'll have another conversation as to why. But so many people today are afraid to make decisions. I think we want to encourage them to make decisions and to be able to think big picture, the implications of those decisions. And that's business in general. I think you got to be able to, we don't have the force as Yoda does to be able to see into the future and some of those things, but you have to be able to look into the future and be able to, right now I use the example, all around us in the paper, you're seeing some projections. Sarasota County is going to be short on funding budgets in the coming years, right? So what does that tell us as leaders? So funding may be tight coming in 2027, 2028. So we better start having those conversations now. What are we going to be doing to plan for some difficult times that are coming? So the work that we do now in the next couple of years are going to help position ourselves for what's going to happen in 2027, 2028. And I think those have to be part of the discussions at all nonprofits, at all businesses. And you have to think in bigger terms in that sense when you see what's happening around you, because that's going to impact funding at Sarasota County level, could impact some of the state and federal. We see some of that impact at the federal level now. And so how well you prepare is, happens years before that.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about like different things that have happened at CPC over your tenure and over your career there. Resilience is one of those words we hear a lot, but you have to be resilient, right? What stands out to you as sort of a leadership lesson of something that didn't go the way you wanted it to, but you were able to overcome it, you personally or the organization?
Yeah, I think I shared this on the other podcast, and I think for me is being a new CEO and going back to years, I'm like, we wanted to do all this work with our board because we wanted to make something different. And I created a board manual, these beautiful board manuals that just had everything from our, elevator speeches, our, strategic plan, everything that was there, all nice in these binders. And it was done. And we were giving them to the board members and, it flopped. And it flopped because the staff did all the work. And what we learned is we had to do that work together between staff and board to get the outcome that we wanted, because those beautiful board manuals that we created, they sat in the conference room and never left. And it didn't have the outcome we want. So we had to learn from that. And I think when we had to go backtrack and do the work with the board in how to develop what was in there, we had a much different outcome. And I think the message there, you have to be willing to do the work. And you're going to have setbacks, and how you respond to those setbacks is going to be key. Don't get frustrated. Don't get upset. And that's a lesson I try to model for my staff. We can disagree with community providers on cases and everything else, but you're not going to be angry. You don't need any derogatory comments. You're going to be professional. We're going to try to get the outcome and try to make the best solution as possible.
There's definitely a baseball analogy in there, right? If you blow the save, you just got to come back the next day.
Yeah, I mean, even the greatest, they blow saves, right?
Right.
So you have to be willing to go back out there and try and learn from your lessons learned.
Yeah. So Doug, as we're getting toward the final couple of months of 2025, what can we look forward to for Child Protection Center? What's one or two things you're excited about the rest of the year for CPC?
Well, I have two things that I'm really excited about. The first one is, we're going to be expanding. So we're working on a big expansion at our Northport property. So in Northport, we own that property as well. We have about a 5,200 square foot facility down there. We're going to be adding another 6,000 plus building down there for our expansion in Northport to better serve that community. So we are working with HUD on a federal grant, an earmark. We are working to have an RFP that right now is tentated to go out about September 12th, as we're vetting design build firms to start that process. So we hope that this next year we're really moving forward in the designed process with a new building that's going to be cohesive and creating a campus of healing that's really going to be there for our long-term growth. So that really excites me, as that we're going to be positioned, because we know South County County, the growth is so massive, and to be positioned to be ahead of the curve and to even have more property for expansion makes me very excited. So that is in the near future. We're working towards that right now to make those things happen. So we're excited to get to the RFP process and get to, that's going to take a little bit, but we hope by the end of the year we have the firm selected, and then we can start designing what it looks like to be a cohesive campus. So that's very excited. The other thing, end of the year, you're always looking at, let's hope, knock on wood, we make it through hurricane season and there's no impact to the area. It's been a difficult year, not just for us, but for many organizations. So we just got our roof done and probably, a month and a half ago, from last year's damage. So we want to get through that. And then it's right now, it's forecasting. Let's looking at what are we projecting for the first half of the year? What are our needs? Where are we coming in? So there's a lot of forecasting that's being done as we sit down with finance. That really affects the operational side. How much more do we need to come in grants, fundraising to balance this year's budget? So there's a lot of efforts being that happens on the back end. And then we have to transition that to how do we communicate to the public that can know how to best support CPC.
Excellent. Well, Doug Staley, Child Protection Center, Sarasota, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you. And Mark, I think we need to get together sometime just talking baseball, and maybe not on a podcast. We could probably do that over lunch sometime.
Would love it. That would be great. Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.